Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Convo Couch. And I felt like I needed to come on here today to really talk about what's happening because I think a lot of us are in a state of anxiety, in a state of fuck everything right now. It seems that there are a lot of contradicting things being said, there's a lot of misinformation, and I don't use that word like the establishment uses it to discount actual things. I use it when I mean disinformation. And there's a lot of fracturing on the left and just a lot of confusion because I don't think we really realized how all of these systems that have kept us fighting each other for so long have been falling apart for a while. And Donald Trump's election kind of epitomized that fact. Like he is a representation of what America was. I mean, he's a reality TV star, he is a narcissist. You could say all these things about Donald Trump, but you also have to know how he was elected. And I don't think that's sunk in to enough people yet. I think way too many people were celebrating Joe Biden's supposed election. Way too many people were so quick to dismiss anything about election fraud because they didn't like Donald Trump. Way too many people were really quick to think that they made the right choice in voting for the lesser of evils, which is still evil, right? Whether you think it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump, evil is evil regardless. And in the last few weeks, it's just been really bad. I just, so many people have been depressed. So many people have felt like they don't know where to go from here or what to do. It just seems that at every avenue we take, there's a roadblock. The one good thing I can say about everything that's gone on thus far is the discovery of the truth, because everything is falling apart. And as it's falling apart, we need to be able to see how we got here and also what we can do going forward. Now, I am of the belief that the Democratic Party is beyond reform. 100%, 100% beyond reform, right? And we can see that play out right now as we speak. But we have to understand that we can't just simply say the Democratic Party is beyond reform and do nothing to actually get us anywhere. There have to be solutions that are presented. And right now, everybody's in a state of shock. Everybody's still kind of in this limbo where we don't really have a president. Sure, the mainstream media can call it for Joe Biden and say that he's the president-elect, but there is obvious opposition from Donald Trump's side. And to be fair, every single candidate, whether you like them or not, has the right to contest an election. I've seen it happen here where progressives are currently contesting elections and demanding transparency, at the very least, from the Secretary of State, which they've not been given. This isn't anything new. The mistrust in this government, the mistrust in our election system didn't just begin with Donald Trump, nor will it end with Donald Trump, because we're not going after the root cause. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and just one of these fee rants that I like to call them, because it's just, it's hard to figure out where to start. But let's start with the idea of cognitive dissonance, because cognitive dissonance to me is the one thing that is keeping people from moving forward. We cannot come to terms with the fact that we haven't lived in a democracy for a long time. We definitely don't even live in a republic. We live in an oligarchy, and we don't select our presidents. We, in fact, very rarely select any officials. We mostly accept what we're given. They are mostly selected by very powerful people and special interests. And that's the reality. And if you come to terms with that reality, then you can move forward and find solutions. But when you're still under this idea that you have to save democracy, that you can save it, that you can vote out fascism, you are being misled. And you're being misled on purpose, because this is what the system wants. For the longest time, the system has profited off of people fighting each other, off of you picking team A or team B. This is how our politics mimics the culture we have in America. It's football. It's a sports game. You pick your team and you cheer. and there's a winner and there's a loser, and then you make fun of the loser and the winner gets to gloat on. And that's what our political system has become. But you are in a coliseum and you are the plebs and you are cheering for a manipulated game. And that's something that's very hard to come to terms with, because then if it is true that the politicians, the presidents in particular, more than anybody, are selected and not elected, then what the hell is going on? Then why are we here and what are we fighting for if that is the case? And I 100% believe that is the case. And the reason I think that is because it's becoming more and more clear to a lot of people that this is all a game to politicians, right? Just yesterday, we played a video of Kamala Harris fist bumping Lindsey Graham. Now, that may seem like a trivial thing, but it is one incident that we have seen multiplied multiple times by different people. We understand that people like George Bush and Barack Obama and the Obamas and the Clintons are all friends, and that they hang out behind the scenes, that they go to each other's weddings, that their kids go to the same schools. They're part of the same circle. What makes you think that that changes at all because one is labeled Democrat and one is labeled Republican? And further, if that is the case, shouldn't you be outraged? Shouldn't you be angry? And shouldn't you be doing something with that, right? Instead of continuing to expect people who have shown you time and time again that they don't give a shit about you to do something, because they're not going to do it. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting for leaders. We have been waiting and waiting and expecting people to come and save us. And that is not even our fault half the time. I mean, we have been kind of bred to think like that. Hollywood has been a perfect propaganda machine for the oligarchy, putting in the, the evil Middle Eastern terrorists, the poor Black family that doesn't, has to be portrayed a certain way, the Latino immigrant. We have been pretty much brainwashed to think that there is this complex within our society that's going to create this sort of savior, and that's going to bring this deus ex machina and save us all. And that's just not reality. That's just not how things work. And so when you realize that all of this, everything that you've been led to believe is false, the first thing you do is deny it. We're in a stage of denial where it's like, no, that's not true. We were able to get vote fascism out. We were able to at least put Biden in, who's better than Trump, right? Is he though? Is he? The guy has been for every single war that has ever been out there since 1973 at least. And he is the creator, the architect of the system that Trump ended up exploiting thereafter. We wouldn't have somebody like Donald Trump if we didn't have the Joe Bidens before him, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Reagans. We wouldn't. We just wouldn't. And that's a reality that's hard to come to terms with, because once you realize that's insurmountable evil monstrosity that is this oligarchy full of a very small number of people, of elites who hold all this power and who wish to continue to hold this power no matter how much it takes, it feels like it's pointless and it's fruitless. And how the hell do we even get out of this knot that we found ourselves in? And the system is doing this by design. It beats you and beats you until you no longer have the capacity or the will to fight back, and until you accept it for what it is. Which is why, going back to the aftermath of what's happened, we need to realize the truth. And you've seen Pasta and I lay out the, talk to election integrity activists about the election fraud and all of that. But we make very sure to be very clear that we don't need foreign entities or foreign countries to interfere in our elections. We, in fact, do it ourselves. We are a country that is an oligarchy ruled by corporations. We are the corporate states of America, and we coup who we want to coup. We overthrow regimes around the world. We bomb and drone whoever the hell we want to bomb. We extract resources and do our bidding under this mantle of the Monroe Doctrine, under this mantle that's so far outdated of manifest destiny. We still continue to do this around the world. We fabricate events like 9/11 and manipulate them in a way to manufacture consent for war, right? We've done this time and time again. If you know that, what in you makes it logical to think that you're still choosing your president? And I know that is a very difficult thing to come to terms with. Like I said, the cognitive dissonance of that is immense. And I think Americans right now, a vast majority of them are in a perpetual state of cognitive dissonance, in a state where it's really hard to trust anything that is being said, really hard to trust anybody. People go where they're comfortable. The right is going to go where they're comfortable. They're going to go and they're going to blame Venezuela and the ghost of Hugo Chavez and communism, or a foreign person for their problems. That's what they do, because that's what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do. They want you to blame somebody else. The left, or the Democratic Party, and a lot of progressives go to where they're comfortable and say, well, you know, Trump is bad. He's a fascist. I'm glad he's out. So yeah, let's forget the election. Let's pretend that Bernie Sanders didn't get cheated twice in the last 2 presidential elections. Let's pretend that even if he did, somehow the Democratic Party decided not to rig elections this time, just because we don't like Donald Trump. But we're not going to say that. We're going to say it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're just going to say that it's just not possible, even though mathematicians, even though statisticians, even though software developers say that there is no such thing as a glitch. These were anomalies, and these elections were manipulated. Now, it's not about Trump. I don't want Trump to be president any more than I want Biden to be president. But I want Americans to choose the president. I want Americans to live in a place that is by and for the people. And we don't live in that place any longer. And the more you cling on to this idea that we do, the more that gets in the way of actually changing anything at all. And so in the aftermath of the Donald Trump Biden election, we saw immediately the left dismiss election fraud as a right-wing talking point. Even kind of insult those of us who were like, no, this is actually, you know, I may hate Donald Trump, but this is actually, there's something going on here, at the very least questioning it, to be smeared as some sort of right-winger or some sort of, you know, Trump supporter, secret MAGA supporter, you know. And then the right automatically goes into, let's blame the individual, right? Voter fraud. Let's blame the immigrant, etc. That plays right into what these powerful forces want, because it polarizes people more. And it makes the issue of election integrity a politicized issue on ideology when it isn't. Election integrity is a nonpartisan issue. It's an American issue. It's an issue that we need to really pay attention to if we want to achieve anything at all. Why do you think, stagnant for years, how do we elect people like that if the vast majority of Americans want a single payer type of system? If the vast majority of Americans want free education and free college for all? Why is there this disparity of the people elected versus the will of the people? Because if I recall, during the Declaration of Independence, when America gained independence or claimed and rebelled against the British Empire, they said, you know, if the politicians, if the people in power aren't representing the people have a right to overthrow that government. And that's something that people forget, that if you're not being represented, you have the ability to do something. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be a full-on revolt, but it's becoming that that's the only way in one form or another. But the revolt cannot be against one another. The revolt can't be you revolting against a person that's a Trump supporter. You're not going to get anywhere with that. It's really not going to go anywhere. The revolt has to be those people revolting against the system. Once that happens, it's game over. It is a simple solution. The thing is, we as human beings overcomplicate everything. We're overcomplicating all of these things. We completely don't know as Americans how to really protest in mass like the vast majority of these countries do. They go, and if they don't like somebody, they go and they protest until they get what they want. We don't do that. There are a multitude of reasons. Among them is that we for our government, we are tied to this system. If we don't work, we don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, you lose your insurance. And if you don't have insurance, etc., as it goes, the system is designed to make you subservient to it. It is broken because it is functioning as it should be for a very small, minute number of people. Now, if you know this, right? If you are able to say, okay, well, then what's going on here? Because these Trump supporters are claiming that it's Venezuela and Hugo Chavez, and no, they're wrong. They're wrong. The people claiming that it's Venezuela somehow is interfering in our elections, Sidney Powell, are discrediting themselves. Because when I talk about election fraud, it is a nonpartisan issue because it's a bipartisan practice. Election fraud is a bipartisan practice. Election fraud is a bipartisan practice. Both Democrats and Republicans cheat. What has happened in the last, say, 20 years since the Bush-Gore election is that we have seen a convergence of Republicans and Democrats who are part of the establishment. This is why you're seeing the merger of the Cheneys with the Obamas, the Bushes with the Obamas and the Clintons. You're seeing these people come together and stand behind Joe Biden. And that is extremely dangerous because they are one big aisle, in Bernie's own words. One big aisle. There is no difference, except that one puts on a friendly fascist mask while the other just shows that they're not friendly, but they're still fascistic and authoritarian. And I don't believe that necessarily Trump or Joe Biden are a full-on fascist, but I do believe that we are well on our way towards that. And I believe Americans have used that word so lightly because they have been fear-mongered by the mainstream media. And the mainstream media is the number one culprit in brainwashing everybody. Because even if you are an independent, if you are a progressive and you watch independent media, the mainstream media still rules the narrative. They're the ones that get to say, oh, well, the AP called it, CNN called it. They're the ones you look to confirmation. Why? For 4 years, the Democratic Party spent all of this money, all of this money, this public money, to go and investigate a non-issue like Russiagate, right? There was no evidence that meddling happened to the degree that they claimed. There was no evidence that any of that had anything to do with the election results. There was no evidence of that, yet they still clung to it. Now the right is trying to manufacture this idea that it's Venezuela. Meanwhile, the Democrats are trying to manufacture consent to keep troops in Afghanistan. You do realize that CNN just literally went on and formulated ways to get you to support war and to continue our military presence in Afghanistan. And we have a military presence in hundreds of countries. I mean, this is just, it is not anything new, but people need to realize what's going on here. And what's going on here is the merger of the intelligence community, Silicon Valley / big tech, corporations, our politicians, and of course the mainstream media propaganda machine that was supposed to be the fourth estate, that was supposed to be the thing that oversaw the government and kind of told the public, hey, they're doing this wrong. They were supposed to be the watchdogs, and they have instead turned into propagandists for the defense industry, propagandists for special interests, for big tech. Even from the moment that they were spewing all these smears and lies about Bernie Sanders, that they were spewing all these smears and lies about people like Tulsi Gabbard, even from those moments during the primary, that is election interference in itself. That, because you are literally lying to create a narrative. That is interfering in our elections. We do not need Russia, Venezuela, China, or any other country to interfere in our elections when we do it ourselves. And it's both parties doing it because they represent one big aisle. Now, that continued, right? And it went into Bernie Sanders being kind of thrown out by the whole COVID, not standing up, not wanting to pursue election integrity both times, even though people went to him and said, Bernie, we really want you to like talk about this. And he didn't. And he didn't do it. And now, guess who's doing it? It's Donald Trump. But it's the wrong narrative, because now they get to say, oh, well, this is Venezuela and blah, 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 even though it's bullshit, number one. Number two, it's being done on purpose. Because if anybody, whether it's Trump, Bernie, Biden, any politician, is able to actually prove that there's election fraud and that we don't vote for people, that people are selected, that destroys everything. That'll destroy any sort of American trust in the system. That destroys any sort of credibility. And these people, it takes away the illusion. So they're not going to let that happen. They're not. They're going to push him out because they want him out. But that's something that you have to understand, that what's happening here is beyond scary, because we are not in control at all. And feigning and holding on to this idea that we are is hurting us more than actually admitting that we have a problem. It is like an addict. You have to admit that you have a problem. And once you admit you have a problem, then you can work on the solutions. But if you don't admit you have a problem, then that problem is going to continue to manifest in itself, and it's going to get worse and worse. And that's kind of what's going on right now, is that we are being manipulated. The right is being manipulated through fear mongering of their own, whether with the foreign countries, the immigrants, etc. The Democrats are being manipulated with their fear mongering of Trump. Trump's a fascist, boogeyman, orange man bad. You have to hate him. You have to whatever. It doesn't matter if they rigged it, because I've heard people say, I don't even care if it was rigged. I'm just glad Trump's out. That's not okay. That's not okay, because the American people didn't choose that. And that's just going to come back and bite you in the ass when it's a progressive that you actually care about. Because the clock is ticking now. And there's a reason why Republicans won the Senate. Think about that. Why they won seats in Congress. It's because the whole thing was about the presidency. You're expecting me to believe that Joe Biden got 12 million more votes than Barack Obama. Right? Like, that's what you're expecting me to believe. When there are so many statistical improbabilities going on, there's no way that people like me, even election integrity specialists, are going to be able to prove that, because whenever you get close enough to that, they stop you. And as you can see, even Trump's people are in on it. They're not gonna push much harder, because it's not convenient for them for all of the truth to come out. None of these people want the truth. The truth is not going to come from a politician. The truth isn't going to come from an elected official. The truth is going to come if we demand the truth. And that's where we're at right now. We have people talking about third parties. We're not going to have a third party that's viable if we don't pay attention to election integrity. They're going to run into the same exact bullcrap that people have been running to for decades. It doesn't matter if you have the best party in the world with the best people, the best known, amazing, whether it's Nina Turner, whether it's Cornel West, whether it's whoever it is. It doesn't matter if we don't address the issue of election fraud. And people need to understand that. We need to address this issue. We need ranked choice voting. We need to get ballot access in all these states. But in order to do that, the left has to come together with some people they may not agree with. Because I think at the end of the day, this fight is going to be the people versus the oligarchy. That is what this is all about. That's what's really going on. Bottom line, it's the people versus the oligarchy, period. And there's no other way around it. I don't agree with the right in any way, shape, or form when it comes to immigration, when it comes to racism, when it comes to police brutality, not even racism, when it comes to racial issues, because I don't believe that every single Trump supporter is a racist. I just don't believe that, because I've seen people vote for him because they think that he's at least more transparent about who he is, and he is. He shows the ugliness in America, and America doesn't want to see that. Liberal, intellectual America does not want to come to terms with the fact that a man like that is a president they deserve. That's it. We don't want to come to terms with that. And we have to. We have to. You cannot continue hating half the other side of the country just because they voted for Donald Trump. You can't continue simply mocking them and pretending that they're full of shit, because a lot of the times they are, but a lot of times, some of the times they're not. And some of the times you need to realize that we're wasting our time here fighting people who are misinformed and miseducated. And instead, we need to fight the system. And we can't fight the system if we're busy fighting each other. It is that simple and that basic. And the one hurdle we need to get over is this cognitive dissonance. This idea that somehow a Democrat is in office is going to make it all better. Like the Georgia Senate race. Stop. Like, why? Why is it that putting a Democrat in there who's a neoliberal, who is as pro-war, is as anti-Medicare for all, as anti-Green New Deal, pro-fracking as it gets, is going to make it better? Why have you bought into this propaganda that that's any better? It's not. The Democratic Party is the same as the Republican Party. They just wear a pretty rainbow mask, and that's all it is. And that's what people don't want to hear, because it made them feel good to think that they did something once every 4 years. Oh, yay, I went and I voted for Joe Biden. Ooh, yay, we voted out fascism. No, you didn't. You opened the Pandora's box into the intelligence state, the security state. The amount of censorship that accompanied the Joe Biden campaign, the Joe Biden selection, the way the New York Post literally was like, look, I'm not even a huge fan of the New York Post, but the way they were censored on Twitter, the way they're censoring Donald Trump, I know you don't like Donald Trump, but do you see the precedent that's setting? Do you see how that could be problematic? So what happens if, say, next time we get in a Nina Turner as president by miracle? What do you think the system will do to people who they want out of power if we let them get away with all of this just because we don't like somebody? What do you think is next? We are literally going down the spiral of 1984, and there is no turning back. And the more you dismiss election fraud, and the more you play into your Team A and Team B cheerleading squads, and the more you pretend that the squad has done all this great crap that they haven't done, like, the more you trick yourself into thinking that electoral politics will save you when electoral politics is not going to save you. There is no movement right now to have a viable third party when we don't have election fraud, when we don't have all these things. How do we do that? How can you expect that to happen when you're not doing the work to do it? And that's what people need to understand, is there has to be an outside the electorate movement of people coming together and holding the establishment accountable based on issues. So if your issue is Medicare for all, well, then you better realize really quick that you need free speech to inform people about that. And you need to be able to vote for people who are for it. But if all those people that you vote for are only in the Democratic Party, then they're going to eventually capitulate, because that's what's been happening. These people have been capitulating. There is no reforming the rot in the Democratic Party. There's only going around it. So what I'm saying is the solution, because it is a solution that many people who understand what needs to be done have been saying. It's just that some people don't get it. They don't see it as a solution. The solution is direct action. The solution is, sure, while some people are going to be in the Democratic Party, you need to build a framework for these third-party cadres. But in order to have the framework, you need to have a movement of people that are ready to do that are working together against the system, that are out there demanding from politicians a stimulus. You've got $1,200 stimulus and that's it. And you're okay with that? You're just going to take that? Like, that is not okay. We're in the middle of a pandemic and they rejected healthcare. We're in the middle of a pandemic and they selected the guy in 5th place, made him president, and made the woman who couldn't even win her own state VP. Do you realize what's going on here? Because that's what's going on. You have no power, and you gave up that power, the little bit you had, when you voted for Joe Biden. That's what happened. And that's what people don't want to hear. And so now when you are powerless as an individual, when you can't necessarily vote because you're not sure if your vote counts and there's zero transparency to show you otherwise, because you can't prove to me that it's not rigged. You can't. You can't, because we can't look in those machines. We can't look into anything because the software in those machines and everything in our system is hidden and it's owned by corporations. So that should be a red flag, number one. You should be demanding fair and free elections. Everything and anything that you want won't happen without that. And Americans are so quick to dismiss it now because they want you to dismiss it. They want that politicized so both the left and the right dismiss it for their own reasons. And that's what they want. And then as that continues, you continue fighting each other and nothing gets done. And we don't have time for this shit anymore. We don't. Because Joe Biden gets in there. As you have seen, his cabinet picks, his staff picks, his transition team are all full of CIA, NSA goons who are literally going to come after independent media. They're going to go after the voices of dissent. They're going to go after the journalists exposing them. They're going to go after everybody telling the truth. And the mainstream media arm of this propaganda arm is going to continue lying to the American people. And they've already got their dirty little fingers inside YouTube, and they're using Silicon Valley, Google, and YouTube to also manipulate a platform that was once for independent voices. And we're getting censored left and right. And that is 1984. That is fascism. You didn't vote it out. You just changed the cryptic part of it. You just made it more cryptic. It's hidden now. A Black Lives Matter supporter the other day, and we showed this video, was saying that it is harder for them to fight racism under a Biden presidency because it is not as obvious. People went home, they were out there cheering, yay, we got rid of Donald Trump, and then they go home and they go back to brunch, and people were arguing, saying that wasn't going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. The very people saying that wasn't going to happen were literally all over Facebook making fun of it and saying, oh, yay, we can go back to brunch, haha, I'm just kidding, but take the weekend and have a great time. No, fuck that. Like, what in your right mind makes you think that this is a time to celebrate? The American people lose either way, whether it's Trump or Biden, and not just the American people. People all over the world lose either way. And in fact, people are more scared of Joe Biden because if you haven't noticed, the neocons are both on the Democratic and the Republican Party. There is bipartisan support for war. This is nothing new. What Tammy Duckworth said is nothing new. This has been going on for a while now. But people want to pretend that there is a difference, and there isn't. Just one side is blatant about it. And they're manufacturing consent to keep troops there. They're going to manufacture consent to go into coups, maybe in Venezuela, in the global south. They're going to manufacture consent to continue sanctions on Syria. They're going to manufacture consent to do what it is they've been doing, regardless of who's president. So when you just perk up every 4 years and say, well, so-and-so 2024 is going to save us, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing everybody a disservice, and it's absolutely wrong. And the fact is, we can't continue to do this anymore. We can't continue to function like this because that's it. I mean, we have nothing left if we don't have our voices, right? So this is why people have been speaking out in favor of Julian Assange, have been absolutely constantly talking about the lack of freedom of speech in our system. And people were saying, you guys, who cares about this one guy? He's just an Australian. Who gives a crap? Well, that's the thing. He's Australian. He's not even freaking American. And look what we're doing to him. Look at what we're doing to somebody that isn't even American. And by the way, that started in the Obama administration, even though Donald Trump carried the last, he's the one that is pursuing this. But is it really Trump, or is it people behind Trump? Because let's be real here. Presidents aren't in charge, and we know this, right? It's the security state, the military industrial complex. All these people are in charge. And so when you figure this out, that's why it gets to be so tedious and so scary. And it's just easier to believe that things are continuing the way they are, because that's it. Like, it's okay. Well, hopefully we progressives get a chance to push Biden left via the Biden administration, because they wouldn't get that chance with Donald Trump. It's just a bunch of bullshit. It's just not real. That's not the reality. The reality is that both parties are an illusion. They're controlled. The Democrats are controlled opposition. They're not even that anymore. I mean, it's really obvious. The squad, however, right? They're sitting there. AOC is talking about, oh, we have to do this and that, and giving a great speech. Meanwhile, they all voted for Nancy Pelosi. All of them. Every single one of them voted to keep Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. What fucking opposition is that? And stop telling me that that's all they have to do because they don't have a choice. No, they have a choice. They have a choice. They have the people. If they wanted to literally say, you know what, we're going to oppose Nancy Pelosi, everybody show up at Washington, D.C., show up at the Capitol Hill, we're going to march and we're going to demand the removal of Pelosi, they could fucking do it. They could do that. But they're not doing that. Why? Because it is a political move. It is, I want to keep my seat. I want to keep my committees. I want to keep my power in there. That is what they're doing. They're sacrificing you to do what it is they think needs to be done. And that's the bottom line, you guys. Stop relying on politicians to save you. Stop relying on electoral politics to save you. The reality is what's happening here is everything is getting exposed. And you have to be able to sift through this information and find nuance in these discussions. Nothing is black and white. Nothing in politics is black and white. None of these people are heroes. Stop deifying these people. Stop putting them on this mantle of the fact that they're saints. There is no Saint Bernard. There is no Saint AOC. There's no saint of anybody. These are people that are part of the system. And our system is beyond help, meaning it is beyond the scope where it can be reformed. The only way to actually change the system at the state that it's at is for an actual sort of revolt, whether it is mass protests, whether it is a sort of movement, hopefully nonviolent. But at this point, it's really only a matter of time before people get to that point. Now, Americans, like I said, are scared and they're not so quick to want to leave their comfort. So the very first thing to do is to inform them and shake them out of this comfort that they've so desperately wanted for the longest time, right? They want to go back to brunch. People won't admit it, but they want to go back to brunch. They want to go back to not caring about who is president, really, right? Just being able to look on CNN, and CNN, do you think they're going to criticize Joe Biden for who he's picking on his staff picks? Do you think MSNBC is going to be like showing Joe Biden and attacking him 24/7 like they were attacking Donald Trump? Do you think they're even going to do anything remotely along those lines? No, they're not. So people are going to think everything is fine. And we're going to get told, oh, well, you got to give Joe Biden a chance. He inherited a really bad situation from Donald Trump. And, you know, there's only so much he can do with a Republican Congress. Oh, you got to give Joe Biden a chance. I mean, he just got here. The economy was so bad because of Trump. So now, you know, it's a lot for him to clean up. Oh, you got to give Kamala a chance now that she's president. You know, she'll probably do a better job. She's a woman of color. And, you know, we need more women. Hashtag, intersectional imperialism. Hashtag intersectional fascism. Oh, we got to give Kamala another term because, you know, we don't want these Republicans to win. You don't want Tom Cotton to be president, do you? Like, this is what's going to happen. I am telling you what's going to happen because it is not that difficult to perceive what's going to happen once you know who's in power here. And it's not you and me. And it's a very few amount of people. And they are showing that they don't give a crap who they have to push out of president. It's literally this. It's literally going to be these mechanisms, the security state, the military industrial complex, all these people in power. They're literally showing you, they're telling you that this is what's going to happen. And there's just too many people desperately clinging on to this idea that that's not happening. And it is. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today and let you know What is going on? Well, what's going on is the dismantling of these oppressive systems, and the illusion of these oppressive systems is fucking falling apart. And you are experiencing massive national cognitive dissonance, and you are experiencing it at a level that is causing depression. It is causing you to feel hopeless. It is causing you to feel like, what the hell do we do? I don't know what's going on. I thought I did the right thing by voting for Joe Biden. I thought that this was going to be okay. And you're going to see very quickly that it's not. He's picking people who are absolutely disgusting, who are corporate lobbyists, who are Wall Street regulars, who are pro-war neocons. And you need to know that. And you need to come to terms with the fact that you didn't pick Joe Biden. Joe Biden was selected. Kamala Harris was selected. And by the way, this isn't going to be a Biden presidency. This is going to be a Kamala Harris presidency. She was the chosen one. She was the chosen one. And that's what we're going to see. And whether Trump continues with his pursuit of election fraud, he's right. I mean, there was election fraud, but he doesn't really care, I think, about exposing these people. He might get angry and, hey, push him on Assange. Push him to approve Medicare for all. I don't care. Push him just to do things to spite the Democrats. He's not going to do things because it's the good thing to do. But that's irrelevant. Push him to spite the Democrats. Push him to do the best that he can to remove these troops from Afghanistan. We need that. There's nothing wrong with wanting that just because he's saying it. Now, that's what's going to happen. But the people in power want him out. So they're going to push him out. The only way he stays in is if he had more friends in DC, and he doesn't. And they're going to get him out, and people aren't going to be sad to see him go. But what's going to come after that is a very angry, more aware, and more combative right. They're going to come back, and they're going to be justifiably angry, and it's going to get worse. And I said Tom Cotton because Tom Cotton can very well run next time around. Donald Trump could run again. This is not a fear-mongering. I'm telling you what it is. Fear-mongering is the idea that Trump isn't going to leave and he's sort of going to stay there as a tyrant. That is fear-mongering. I don't know how many people I've heard say that. Where did you get that information? Because the only people I hear saying that are people on mainstream media, all these pundits. So if you're saying that, you're literally regurgitating a CIA talking point, because that's what it is. There's no indication that Donald Trump isn't going to leave office if he loses. Like, if he exhausts every single avenue and he loses, he's going to get out. Like, stop promoting this idea that that's not going to happen. Okay. Cause that's just not the reality. But it won't matter, because Joe Biden being president, it might actually be worse. The people he's aligning himself with have shown us that they're ready to do whatever it is to get their interests served. And that is scary. And you should be scared. You should be angry. You should be confused. All of these emotions are normal to have. But what we need to do with these emotions is put them into action and stop fucking around right now with this idea that everything's fine. Everything's fine. The house is on fire, but everything's fine. Everything's fine. Let's just pretend. Let's just pretend to be happy for a few minutes because we got Donald Trump out. What did that get you? It got you Joe Biden and the security state that literally manipulated everything to get him elected. That's what that got you. And I'm just so done with the tribalism that's happening in American politics, where we can't even have this discussion without insulting each other and calling each other a right winger or whatever. Like, stop. Like, this is nothing to do with my political preference. My political preference is off the charts. Like, I am literally as left as can be. I am anti-authoritarian as can be. I believe in free speech. I do not believe in a leftist authoritarianism in any way, shape, or form. My ideology is irrelevant when I talk about election fraud. It's absolutely irrelevant. I get angry when we blame other countries, especially the global south. That's when I get angry, and you'll see the socialist in me come out, because it's like, oh, really? We're going to blame Venezuela, who has actual fair and free elections, unlike we do? We're really going to blame Russia? They don't need to interfere in our elections. This is the same bullshit. And the more they manipulate these narratives to pit you against each other, the more you fall into it, the less weapons we have to fight them. Because as I'm ending this, I just want to say, the minute we actually cut the crap and come together and, and I say, hey, you really don't want, let's say I want more of a pathway to citizenship. This person doesn't really get that. But I'm like, hey, we should have the ability, the opportunity to fucking vote for whoever we choose. Whether it's candidates on opposite ends, we should have the ability to choose that as a democracy, as a republic. We're not any of that. We're not. And if we don't have that ability to have that discussion of ideas, what the hell is this? We're living in a prison. It's just an embellished golden prison where they give you a little bit of a leash to do certain things, but just enough so you won't revolt. But like I said, things are falling apart and people are realizing what's going on. And it is very normal to go through this process of feeling helpless and feeling hopeless. And it's okay to feel that way. But don't let these people manipulate you any longer into believing in this two-party system. It is one big aisle. It is a giant oligarchy. And the sooner we realize that and are quick to understand it, the easier we can fight it. We will not be able to fight it if we're fighting each other. If we get a civil war, it's going to stop a class war. They want a civil war to stop the class war. They want the civil war to stop the war against the oligarchy. That's the real war going on here. The war against this oligarchy that is censoring us, that is robbing us, that is making us sick, that is making us hate each other. That's the real war happening here. It is not a left-right paradigm. The paradigm has always been and has continued to be and will continue to be an up and down paradigm of the masses versus the 1% and beyond the 1%, the 5%, the 10%, the 20%. Those are the enablers of that system. Those are the people that think that they somehow are going to be Jeff Bezos or they're going to be able to reach close enough to that. That's who we have to fight that. We don't have to fight people's ideologies. We compete with those ideologies. We compete with those voices that we don't like. I don't like QAnon. I don't like the right-wing narrative against or the pro-police narrative. Let me compete with those voices. Let me show how wrong they are. Do not censor them. The moment you censor them, you dismiss it. You dismiss my ability to combat it. You dismiss the discussion of ideas, the exposure of how wrong some of these ideas might be. That is why censorship is wrong. That's why you don't go into your little corners and make fun of each other, hoo-hoo-ha, and that goes for both ends of the political spectrum, because it doesn't do anything. You are living in a fucking echo chamber, regurgitating the same crap that your friends say and pretending that it applies to everybody else when it doesn't. Most of America doesn't know what the hell's going on. They just want to be done with this. They just want to vote every 4 years and they want to be asleep. Don't let them go to sleep. Wake them up. Because the last time we had the big sleep during the Obama years is after that, we got Donald Trump. And we're right there. We're right back where we started. 3 giant leaps back for mankind is what happened. The only solution, you guys, is to shake people up, shake people awake, make them realize that they've been sleeping and that they need to understand what's really going on here. In simple words, in small words, in little conversations. Don't fall into, I'm going to argue with my uncle who is a Trump supporter. Understand, hey, why did you vote for Trump? Oh, okay, well, I thought that he was blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Like, let's have this conversation. Same thing with the neoliberals. Like, honestly, like, there is no other way that we're going to get anywhere if we continue putting little corners in ourselves and not talking to people who are completely misinformed. Neoliberals are misinformed. Right-wingers are misinformed. The American people are largely misinformed on purpose, by design, and like bread and circus, they said. Give them bread and circuses. That is what it is turned to. That is, we are Rome. We are Rome before the fall. And once you realize that, that's how we go forward. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all the Patreon members and all the ways that you guys support us. So we will be back with a show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the election, obviously, but we're also going to be talking about what Nancy Pelosi and how she's being supported, of course, by the squad. And by the way, yeah, like I said, Exhibit A as to why there's no reforming the Democratic Party, right? The people we elect go to capitulate back into that, and it's just going to grow, and they're just going to sheep herd people back into the Democratic Party, and there is just no way forward with that party. So I'm not gonna yell at people for thinking that, yay, we're gonna do this on a local level. At a local level, sometimes things work differently. But the most important thing I want to say is that the election issue is a nonpartisan, bipartisan issue, right? It affects anybody of any kind of ideology, and election fraud is very real, and it is what is keeping us from having representatives who represent us. And it's also there because we have corporations controlling our country and not people. We have intelligence communities controlling our country and not the people. So how do we even begin to throw a dent in this whole system? Well, we have to first realize that that's what's going on and stop denying it as a conspiracy theory, because it's not. That word conspiracy theory was invented by the CIA, number one. Number two, it's 2020. Nothing is a conspiracy theory. This year has been absolutely detrimental to many people, and it's only going to get worse as the economy is going to crash again, especially if we close businesses again. We don't have anything. People got one stimulus. There has to be a shit point. If it's crossed your mind that your shit line has been crossed, it is time to do something about it. And there is a way to do that. It's called mutual aid. And people who are willing and able to protest and willing and able to have these lists of demands and willing and able to start this sort of thing need to understand about mutual aid. It is the people caring for the people. And we cannot let the system make us fight poor people against poor people when we need to be looking up. So once again, thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Convo out. Bye, guys.